In the heart of Texas, where justice moves slow but strikes hard, a woman named Kimberly LaGayle McCarthy spent over 15 years staring down the barrel of death row. But on June 26, 2013, the clock finally ran out. She became the 500th inmate executed by lethal injection in the state since capital punishment was reinstated. And she was the first woman put to death in America in nearly 3 years. But why? What drove a once promising occupational therapist to commit acts so heinous that they shocked even hardened investigators? Stick around as we dive deep into Kimberly's twisted life, from her descent into addiction to the brutal murders that sealed her fate, her desperate lies to evade justice, and her chilling final words on the gurney. By the end, you'll be left wondering, was this true justice or just the end of a tragic spiral? Hit that subscribe button, and let's uncover the dark truth behind Kimberly LaGayle McCarthy. Viewer discretion is advised. This story involves graphic violence addiction and the raw realities of the death penalty. All facts are drawn from court records, investigations, and official statements handled with the respect they deserve. Let's rewind to the beginning. Kimberly LaGayle McCarthy was born on May 11, 1961 in Greenville, Texas, a small town where life moved at a slower pace. Growing up in a modest family, she showed early promise. She was intelligent, driven, and had a knack for helping others. After high school, she pursued a career in healthcare, earning her certification as an occupational therapist. For a time, she worked in nursing homes and rehabilitation centers, assisting the elderly and disabled with daily tasks, rebuilding lives one patient at a time. It seemed like she was on a solid path. She even got married, started a family, and had a son. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming, cracks that would soon shatter everything. By the late 1980s, Kimberly's life began to unravel. What started as experimentation with drugs escalated into a full-blown addiction to crack cocaine. This wasn't just a casual habit. It was a monster that consumed her. Crack cocaine, known for its intense, short-lived high demands, constant feeding. Users often spiral into desperation, willing to do anything for the next hit. For Kimberly, that meant the end of her stable job. She lost her position as an occupational therapist, her marriage crumbled under the strain, and she found herself divorced, raising her son alone while scraping by. But the addiction didn't stop there. It led to a string of arrests that painted a picture of a woman in freefall. In 1990, Kimberly was convicted of forgery, likely faking checks or documents to fund her habit. Then came prostitution charges as she turned to the streets to make quick cash. Later, theft of services followed, small-time crimes that showed her growing desperation. Each conviction chipped away at her dignity, her relationships, and her future. By the mid-1990s, she was a shadow of her former self, unemployed, isolated, and utterly enslaved to crack. She lived in Lancaster, Texas, a quiet suburb south of Dallas, in a neighborhood where people still knew their neighbors and trusted one another. But trust can be deadly, as one elderly woman would soon discover. Fast forward to July 21, 1997. It was a sweltering summer day in Lancaster, the kind where the heat waves dance off the pavement. 71-year-old Dorothy Booth, a retired psychology professor, was at home enjoying her quiet retirement. Dorothy was a kind soul, educated, independent, and always willing to lend a hand. She had known Kimberly for years. They were neighbors, just a few houses apart. Kimberly had even worked in fields similar to Dorothy's past profession, so there was a level of familiarity. When the phone rang that afternoon, it was Kimberly on the line, asking to borrow a cup of sugar. It seemed innocent enough, a classic neighborly request. Dorothy, ever the gracious host, agreed and invited her over. But Kimberly didn't come for sugar. Hidden in her clothing was a 10-inch butcher knife, cold and sharp, ready for horror. As soon as she stepped inside Dorothy's home, the facade dropped. Kimberly pulled out the knife and attacked with ferocious intensity, stabbing Dorothy 5 times in a frenzy that left the elderly woman gasping on her kitchen floor. But the brutality didn't end there. Kimberly grabbed a heavy candle holder from nearby and smashed it into Dorothy's face, crushing bones and inflicting unimaginable pain. As Dorothy lay motionless, bleeding out, Kimberly wasn't satisfied. In a grotesque act of greed, she took the knife and severed Dorothy's left ring finger to steal her diamond ring, a symbol of a life well lived, now reduced to pawnshop fodder. With Dorothy dead on the floor, Kimberly ransacked the house like a predator scavenging its kill. She gathered cash, valuables, credit cards, anything she could carry. Then, she calmly walked out, climbed into Dorothy's white Mercedes-Benz, and drove off. Her first stop, a crack house where she traded some of the stolen goods for more drugs. Later that day, she pawned Dorothy's wedding ring for a measly $200 and used the credit cards 4 times in under 24 hours, including at a local liquor store. It was as if the murder was just a means to an end, a quick fix for her insatiable addiction. Dorothy's body wasn't discovered until later, but when it was, the scene was one of pure horror, an elderly woman betrayed in her own home, left to die alone. The police didn't take long to connect the dots. Dorothy's neighbors mentioned Kimberly's visit and suspicions mounted. Investigators obtained a search warrant for Kimberly's house, and what they found was damning. Tucked away was the butcher knife, scrubbed clean in an attempt to erase the evidence. But forensics don't lie. When experts dismantled the handle, they discovered dried blood trapped in the seams. DNA testing confirmed it belonged to Dorothy Booth. That knife, combined with Dorothy's stolen ID found in Kimberly's possession and surveillance footage from the liquor store showing Kimberly using the credit cards, built an ironclad case. There was no denying it, Kimberly had committed a cold-blooded murder for drug money. But as detectives dug deeper, they uncovered that this wasn't Kimberly's first rodeo with violence. Her life story revealed a pattern of escalating criminality fueled by addiction. Born into a working-class family, Kimberly had siblings and a mother who tried to keep things together. Her early years were unremarkable, but by her 20s the drugs had crept in. Crack cocaine hit the streets hard in the 1980s, ravaging communities, especially in urban areas like Dallas County. For Kimberly, it started small, maybe partying with friends, but soon it dominated her every thought. She lost her job, her husband left, and her son witnessed a mother who was absent even when present. Friends described her as charming when sober, but volatile and manipulative when chasing a high. By 1997, at age 36, she was desperate, willing to cross lines she once thought unimaginable. After her arrest, Kimberly didn't go quietly. She provided a written statement to detectives, spinning a tale that reeked of desperation. According to her, the nightmare began after midnight on July 24th at her home. 2 men she knew vaguely, drug dealers nicknamed Kilo and JC, were there partying and using crack with her. When the drugs and money ran dry, the mood soured. They grew aggressive, threatening to harm her unless she got them more cash. That's when she claimed they hatched the plan, called Dorothy pretend to borrow sugar and rob her. Kimberly insisted she stayed outside while Kilo and JC forced their way in, emerging minutes later with Dorothy's purse keys and valuables. She admitted driving them away in the Mercedes, pawning items, and using the credit cards, but only because she was coerced, she said. It was a classic blame shift, portray herself as a victim caught in the web of bad men. But the evidence shredded her story like tissue paper. No fingerprints or DNA from these mysterious men were found at the scene. The knife was in her house, Dorothy's blood on it. Surveillance showed only Kimberly using the cards, and witnesses placed her alone at the pawn shop and liquor store. There was no Kilo, no JC, just Kimberly, her addiction, and her lies. Prosecutors saw through it, charging her with capital murder killing during the commission of a robbery which in Texas can land you on death row. The trial in November 1998 was swift and unforgiving. The jury heard the gruesome details, the stabbings, the finger severance, the casual trip to the crack house afterward. They saw the forensic evidence, the surveillance tapes. Kimberly's defense tried to humanize her, painting her as an addict in need of help, not execution. But the state argued she was a predator preying on the vulnerable for her fixes. After deliberation, the verdict guilty of capital murder. In the penalty phase, the jury sentenced her to death by lethal injection. Kimberly showed little emotion, but her fate was sealed, or so it seemed. Here's where the story takes an even darker turn and why you need to keep watching. During sentencing, prosecutors dropped a bombshell. DNA evidence linked Kimberly to 2 unsolved murders from 1988, nearly a decade earlier. These weren't random crimes. They were eerily similar, targeting elderly women she knew and trusted. First, there was 81-year-old Maggie Harding, a family friend who had known Kimberly since she was a child. Maggie had helped plan Kimberly's wedding, stored her furniture, and treated her like kin. She was a retired woman living alone in Dallas County, known for keeping large sums of cash at home instead of in a bank, something Kimberly had learned during part-time office work for her. On December 1988, Kimberly visited Maggie under the guise of friendship. What happened next was savage. Maggie was stabbed repeatedly in the chest, abdomen, and face, one wound piercing her heart. But the killer didn't stop. Her jaw was broken, cheekbones shattered, and brain hemorrhaged from blows likely delivered with a metal meat tenderizer found in the sink, bloodied and washed. Maggie's purse vanished along with her cash. Just days later, another victim, 85-year-old Jimmy "Jetty" Lucas, a distant cousin of Kimberly's mother. Jetty was disabled, frail, and no match for an attacker. She was stabbed through the eyes, her head and neck bludgeoned so viciously that an ear was torn, her skull fractured, and brain bleeding. A claw hammer lay nearby, stained with her blood. Again, her wallet and purse were emptied. The patterns were undeniable: elderly women known to Kimberly beaten and stabbed in their homes, valuables stolen for quick cash, likely to buy crack. DNA from the scenes matched Kimberly, though she was never formally tried for these killings due to the ongoing capital case. Investigators believed these were the acts of a budding serial killer using trust as a weapon. Why target the elderly? They were easy prey, isolated, trusting, and less likely to fight back. For Kimberly, it was efficiency and evil: betray those who cared for her, kill for cash, feed the addiction. These revelations painted her not as a one-time offender, but as a remorseless predator who had evaded justice for years. Kimberly's legal battles were far from over. In 2001, her conviction was overturned on a technicality: detectives had taken her statement without her lawyer present, violating her rights. But Texas doesn't let capital cases slip away easily. Prosecutors retried her in 2002, presenting the same damning evidence. The outcome: guilty again, death sentence reaffirmed. Over the next decade, her lawyers fought tirelessly. They argued her addiction mitigated her culpability, that she was a sick woman, not a monster. They claimed racial bias in sentencing, noting Kimberly was black, in a system where minorities face harsher penalties. Appeals dragged on, highlighting issues like ineffective counsel and the reliability of DNA links to the 1988 murders. Twice execution dates loomed and vanished. In January 2013, she got a reprieve hours before the needle. April brought another delay. But on June 26, 2013, at age 52, time ran out. Kimberly's final day was a mix of routine and finality. Housed in the Mountain View unit in Gatesville, Texas, she awoke early. No special last meal in Texas anymore. Policy changed in 2011 after an inmate's extravagant request. Instead, she received a standard breakfast at 1:48 a.m., oatmeal, fruit, and chicken sandwiches. She ate quietly, then packed her belongings. She met with the chaplain and her spiritual advisor, finding solace in faith. Her ex-husband visited, a poignant reminder of lost life. As evening approached, guards escorted her to the death chamber in Huntsville. Strapped to the gurney, IV lines inserted, she faced witnesses, including Dorothy's family. Her final words were defiant and spiritual: "This is not a loss, this is a win. You know where I'm going. I'm going home to be with Jesus. Keep the faith. I love you all." As pentobarbital flowed, she added, "God is great," before her breaths grew raspy, then silent. At 6:37 p.m., she was pronounced dead. In the aftermath, Dorothy's daughter, Donna Aldred, spoke for the victims. "My mother was an incredible woman taken before her time. After almost 16 years, this allows me to say goodbye. We're grateful justice is fulfilled." Notably, Kimberly never expressed remorse for Dorothy or the other victims. Her family mourned privately, seeing her as a product of addiction's grip. Kimberly LaGayle McCarthy's story is a cautionary tale of how addiction can destroy not just one life, but many. From promising therapist to death row inmate, her path was paved with choices fueled by desperation. But was justice served? Did the system fail her by not addressing her addiction earlier, or was execution the only fitting end for such brutality? Share your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about her case? If this gripped you, like and subscribe for more deep dives into prisoners' lives and crimes. Until next time, stay safe out there.